Right, good evening. We're now live on YouTube. So members, it is 6:30. I'm going to make a start. Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Scrutiny Committee of Melton Borough Council. Members are reminded that we will be using the audio-visual system this evening, and the meeting will also be live streamed on YouTube. Members are asked to physically raise their hands in the usual way to indicate they wish to speak and to use their microphones when speaking to the benefit of all present. The microphone is light when the red light displays. Please switch mobile phones to silent. Should you need to leave the room during the meeting, unless it is an emergency evacuation, when emergency exits should be used. Please use the marked exit and entrance. I will now provide a reminder of the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording of the meeting. There is legislation that allows the public to film, record, or use social media at a council meeting. This must not be disruptive to the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public seating area. Alongside myself, Robert Child, the chairman of the Scrutiny Committee, I confirm that the following members are present and participating in this meeting. Councillor Siggy Atherton, Prue Chandler, Jeannie Douglas, Chris Evans, Margaret Glancy, Elaine Holmes, and Jacob Wilkinson. In addition to this, we have the following Melton Borough Council officers in attendance. The Director for Housing and Communities, the Deputy Chief Executive, Michelle Howard, the Regeneration Manager, Lee Byrne, the Senior Democratic Services and Scrutiny Officer, Adam Green, and the Democratic Services Officer, Sarah Evans. So we'll move now on to item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. I've received an apology from Councillor Pam Posner and Councillor Tim Webster. Item 2, the minutes. I invite a proposer and seconder to confirm the minutes of the Scrutiny meeting held on the 5th of April 2022. Vote would be taken by show of hands. Can I have a proposer and seconder to confirm the minutes for those present? So if you're happy with the minutes, could I have a proposer to accept them? Councillor Wilkinson.
I'm happy to propose the minutes.
Thank you.
Of meeting.
A seconder. Councillor Jeannie Douglas. Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to second those. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. I invite members who wish to do so to make declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda. A member with a personal interest must declare the interest at the beginning of the meeting, but can take part in the debate. A member with a disclosable pecuniary interest or a pecuniary interest has to declare it and cannot take part in the debate and should leave the room during that item. Are there anybody who wish to make a declaration? Okay, no show of hands. Item 4, the draft town centre vision. I would like to invite the Senior Generation Manager, Lee Byrne, to present the report. The first 20 minutes will be a presentation on the screen, and then there'll be chance to ask questions at the end. You've all had the report attached. So okay, over to you, Lee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Child. I'll just wait for the presentation to be loaded to the screen so members can see. Brilliant. Thanks very much. So I thought I'd complement the report that you've received already with just a very quick presentation to kind of take you through the background, content and context of this town centre vision. As you all know, this meeting forms part of that consultation process to enable members of Scrutiny Committee to feedback comments through this meeting to Cabinet before its decisions made around its formal adoption later on in June, ready for the Levelling Up fund bid. Also taking into account existing consultation and current public consultation that finishes on the 13th of June. Could we on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Very quickly, the outline of this presentation, just a bit of background, context, content, and then I'll go through a couple of examples as to what's in the visioning document, and then identify kind of timeframes for this piece of work, then finally move on to kind of any feedback and questions that members have, and potential next steps arising following this meeting. If we go on to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. So in regards to this particular piece of work, so within the corporate strategy, the council has made a commitment to work with our partners and stakeholders and residents to promote Melton and deliver upon the promise of the rural capital of food and deliver experiences, activities and projects that help deliver that. As part of the 2021-22 budget, we allocated funding to support a number of town centre enhancements. And this also included a commitment to developing and preparing a town centre vision that would ultimately form the basis to enable us to seek funding opportunities to implement a number of regeneration projects. And this is delivering upon that commitment. So to date, we've had consultation sessions with members and two consultation sessions with partners. They took place in September 21 and 22. Following those sessions and feedback that was received after those sessions, we've worked with consultants to develop a draft document that you've all got available in front of you. And that's now open for consultation. That document basically sets out the long-term aspiration for the town centre, as well as a deliverable action plan that demonstrates, that will ultimately, once approved, enable us to demonstrate widespread partner support in regards to the activities, projects, and ultimately the vision for Melton Town Centre. And like I say, that document is currently out for public consultation, with the deadline date due for the 13th of June. Next slide, please. So the context as to why we're doing this and why we're delivering a town centre, a vision for Melton's town centre. So it will essentially enable us to develop a collective vision for the town centre, and it will enable us to demonstrate that through the consultation process and subsequent feedback, it's unanimously supported by partners and the broader public. The document, once finalised, will enable us to kind of underpin these aspirations for the town centre for the next 15 years, during which there's expected to be unprecedented growth in Melton and the wider borough area. And this will very much set out how we expect the town to transform and develop over time, to provide a service and a place of employment, enjoyment, and resident for current and future residents of the town. It essentially looks to prioritise key projects and activities to ensure that the town continues to serve its users, as well as attracting new businesses and visitors to the area and continue to kind of act as that kind of central economic foundation for the Melton Borough's wider economy. More immediately, the town centre vision essentially enables us to kind of support our Developing Levelling Up Fund and UK Shared Prosperity Fund applications. And this is essentially by enabling us to show a coherent and agreed approach to town centre transformation and development in the context of the last 2-3 years and what the town's been and wider area have been through with the twin shock of Brexit and the COVID pandemic as well. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. Just to kind of give members an understanding of kind of the context of the town and how this sits at a kind of spatial level. You can see there that the town centre is very much kind of the beating heart of Melton. It's surrounded by residential and employment, as well as leisure activities such as Twin Lakes, the health, sports centres and key parks like the Country Park and Play Close as well, as well as key enterprise areas such as Pira and some of the manufacturing zones and employment sites within the boundaries of the town centre as well. Move on to the next slide, please. So moving very quickly onto the kind of content and how it's played out within the visioning document. It's split into 5 key sections. Those key sections are basically context, consultation, vision, proposals, and delivery. In regards to kind of each of the key sections, so the purpose of the context section is essentially to set out the current economic position of the town, what challenges it faces, and also looks at things like the planning context within which it sits, and also takes into account the spatial analysis in regards to our nearest neighbours. Consultation basically takes the readers through essentially what consultation has been undertaken to date to inform this draft document and highlights the messages that have come out of those exercises. And then it moves on to the kind of key components of the document, which is essentially one, the vision. So that follows on from the messages drawn out in the consultation and identifies what that vision for Melton could look like, how it supports the transformation of the town to continue to serve its residents, visitors, and businesses. Moving on to the next slide. Thank you very much. Once that's been established, it then moves into those key proposals. That's this. So this, section 4 specifically looks at the development projects and the development opportunities within the town, especially those that have been kind of highlighted by partners as being key to the success of the town, and key areas for broader thematic changes such as enhancing public realm, gateway signage, and other golden threads that kind of bleed through the document and the work that we need to do within the town centre area. And then finally, we move on to the delivery section. This looks to basically draw everything together through the creation of a high-level action plan. It contains all the key projects, programs, and activities that partners and stakeholders have highlighted as being key to Melton's success, and basically kind of sets out things like a very brief description of the project and who the lead partner for that project would be, with the intention that enables us to look for funding opportunities as they arise and kind of develop projects based on those opportunities that have arisen. What I'll move on to next is just kind of an example of how some of those projects are laid out in the town centre visioning document, so members can kind of get a feel for the types of things that we're asking people to consider. So within the proposed development section, as you can see, albeit it's not as clear, I assume it's okay to send this presentation around to members after. Yeah, perfect. So within this and within the town centre document, you can see the kind of key development projects, which are the purple icons, and the development opportunities, which are the cream icons on the map. You can see a very broad spread across the breadth of the town centre. I think that kind of shows that there is, requirements up, throughout the town for key areas and key projects. As you'd expect, there's key projects such as the Bell Centre, cattle markets, Phoenix House, Pira, and beyond, and they're projects that have been identified as by partners and stakeholders through the consultation process as to kind of areas that they believe that will either present a huge challenge to the town centre moving forward if things aren't done with those sites, or have the potential to enable us to benefit from a huge opportunity with a bit of work and build upon kind of solid foundations that currently already exist. So an example of some of those projects, we can move on to the next slide. So again, bit difficult to see here, but we'll send this presentation around after, and it is within the visioning document. One of the key projects that has been identified as an example through this draft visioning document is the Bell Centre. I'm sure it's something that all members are familiar with, and is an ongoing concern for all unanimously for all consultees, stakeholders, and partners. This particular section just kind of sets out what that proposal could look like, what the strategic links are, and what potential next steps we need to undertake that we can do with partners to kind of support doing something with that site, and how we could deliver a better offer via that site for the town centre. Like I say, this draft visioning document isn't to develop a business case or feasibility for these projects. It's just to highlight that these are projects that we need to do work on, and that we need to kind of put into play moving forward, whether it be through projects like the Levelling Up Fund, or through initiatives like the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Another example of the project that's been identified here, go on to the next page, please. Thank you, is the stockyard, so the kind of livestock market, and ensuring that we provide an experiential offer there that utilises the space and generates more and new footfall to the wider town centre area. Most importantly, it doesn't compete with the town centre, but provides a new offer and differential offer that will bring more people and additional value to the wider town centre area, and residents, businesses, and visitors to Melton Borough as a whole. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's some that are kind of general themes that sit throughout the core of this document. Moving on to the next slide, please. Thank you. And one of those is, something that is constantly identified to us, and rightly so, is public realm and gateways in the context of the town centre. And this is broadly with the kind of intent of improving first impressions for when people get into the town, enhancing access points to the town, essentially developing a pride of place through having a strong maintenance program and a kind of coherent wayfaring and signage offer in the town as well, to enable better navigation from one side of the town to the other. Simple things like, for example, when you get off at the train station, it's not immediately obvious where the town centre is. So these are all things that, whilst they're kind of fairly kind of low touch and easy to do, we need to kind of bring all these together to ensure that we've got one complete public realm and gateway plan for the town, to ensure that we're all every person who visits the town knows where the area is, knows where the town is, knows how to get there, and more importantly wants to come back. And the public realm and gateways is a very simple way and good way of ensuring that. Next slide, please. So moving on to timeframes in regards to this Melton Town Centre visioning document. So obviously today is the 6th of June, and this is a scrutiny consultation session. For early to mid-June, we will be, and we've already started under the Equalities Impact Assessment for this visioning document. On the 13th of June, the wider public consultation will end, and we'll be bringing, on the 16th of June, we'll be bringing the visioning document to Cabinet for consideration. By the end of June, the visioning document will be finalised, adopted and published to enable us to inform our levelling up fund bid submissions on the 6th of July and our UK Shared Prosperity Fund investment plan submission on the 1st of August. And that's the end of that's the final slide. That's the end of the presentation. I appreciate there's a fair amount to take in there. I propose now that we'd open the floor for any questions or observations from members.
Just to make it clear, the portfolio holder was intending to come along. I was expecting him to be here, but apparently an officer said to him he didn't think he was allowed to be present. So that's which was rather strange because I had questions for him. Is that right, Jacob?
Yeah, I've been in touch with Councillor Bendlos just to clarify why he wasn't here, and he was told didn't believe, an officer said he wasn't able to, which seems very odd. But he's very apologetic, and he's happy to take questions from members after the meeting. Just seems very odd that, yeah.
Looked into. Thank you for informing me. Yeah. So it's questions to Lee on his own. Then I'll just start the ball rolling. Then Lee, there are several references to feasibility studies, which will clearly require the use of consultants. Melton hasn't the best record in the past, and we've spent a lot of money on consultants. In fact, we've got a report coming to Scrutiny in July. Can you confirm that this will not happen under your watch? Because there are schemes that have got no chance of coming to an end. So we need money to be spent in the right areas and not on pie in the sky schemes. Councillor Holmes, did you want to add something to that?
Just to reiterate what you're saying, I couldn't agree more. We have to be in the real world, not in that ridiculous world that we saw. Sorry about that, but that's how I feel, and I know a lot of other people feel the same way.
Really, it's a case of assurance to the committee that the employment of consultants on this project for the town centre is on proper schemes that have got a good chance of going ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult for me to kind of identify specific areas where that would happen. What I would say is that this is a collection of potential projects. There isn't a guarantee that any of these will move forward. What the purpose of this vision and document is to kind of set out what those key projects are. Obviously, as part of the kind of due diligence process for getting projects up and started is an assessment around viability and whether there is a chance of deliverability. That would be undertaken through reports to committees such as this or cabinet to see whether there is any chance of a project being, like you say, having an output from it. The best example that I could think of would be something around the Bell Centre. If we were to look to deliver something within that site, that would be a joint project with the current owners and other partners. There is a skills gap within the authority. We don't necessarily have the skill sets to undertake those types of assessments, so consultants would likely be appointed. That would be through a procurement compliant route. And I can give members as much assurance as possible that we would only undertake those once we had full backing of partners, members, and other stakeholders that have an impact on the project.
To add to this part of the discussion on employment of consultants, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Lee mentioned the skills gap within the council. Some of this is quite a big undertaking by the council, this entire vision. I just wondered why we would be leaning potentially on consultants rather than getting good people in with the right skills to help deliver this, even if it's on a fixed term basis, to kind of deliver on these projects rather than spending what could be tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds on consultancy fees. Ultimately, we're here to deliver this and also good value to taxpayers.
Nearer the 100,000, Jacob. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, for the larger scale projects, these are multidisciplinary. It wouldn't be one individual person that has enough of a skill set to pick up all of these. You have to consider a breadth and depth of skill sets ranging from engineering, planning, so in some instances transport as well. So that's normally why consultants are brought on for those multidisciplinary type projects.
Where are you taking the funding from?
So none of these projects at this moment in time have funding attached to them. These projects again are ideas that people have put forward and that have been identified as key to the survival of the town centre. We would, as we do for all of our projects or most of the projects that we deal with, we would seek external funding opportunities, as we have for the projects like the Health and Leisure Centre, and as we have for the Food Enterprise Centre and other projects such as that, to enable us to pull together a funding profile that would enable us to undertake projects such as these.
Wilkinson.
Just to pick up on the external funding element, if we were unsuccessful in bids to government, what could we realistically deliver ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these projects and programs have fairly hefty costs attached to them. There are things that we can do on kind of a day-to-day basis around kind of reorganising priorities, but obviously that needs unanimous agreement amongst members and cabinet and things like that. We don't necessarily have the capability without those external funding sources. We have a track record of attracting external funding through organisations like the NEP and obviously things like the UK Shared Prosperity Fund put us in a good position, because that is a non-competitive fund. That is an amount of funding that has been given to us for a 3-year period, subject to confirmation of our investment plan, which is obviously something that we're looking to deliver at this moment in time. And there will be overlap. Some of the projects that partners agree should be put forward as part of that UK Shared Prosperity Fund investment plan will come from this town centre vision, I've got no doubt, and it will be those projects that we look to develop once that UK Shared Prosperity funding has been received.
I have to agree with everything you've said about consultants. We've just had the council have commissioned a transport consultation in Bottisford. I mean, we're totally gridlocked and we keep building more and more houses, and we don't care a damn about whether you can take your car in the village, or somebody can deliver food at the food shops or anything, as long as we just keep building houses. But today, before 9 o'clock, I received the result of this traffic consultation. Well, quite frankly, it's a laugh, because it doesn't tell me anything I don't already know. And I'm not a Johnny Cleverdick, because I don't even live in the village. But it's laughable. And I don't know what we do with these things. I mean, we asked them to look into things, not to tell us what we already know. And I mean, the cost, the parish council refused to contribute with it, because it was, they said the cost was prohibitive. So they backed out. And so the borough are paying, actually the whole borough are paying for this traffic consultation, which doesn't tell us a thing that we didn't already know. And I think we've got to look into these consultants. I mean, we had a meeting with them a month or 6 weeks ago, and we told them then that we knew about this and we knew about that and we knew about something else. And I mean, one of them used to work for County Highways, because when I walked in the room, he said, oh, are you still around? And I said, yeah, and the same for you. And he said, oh, I've moved on. I'm now working for a private consultation group. I mean, we've got to be careful about this, what we spend.
Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Look, I try very hard to keep things on the lid, because my wife says I let rip every now and again. We can't have this meeting without the portfolio holder here. This is ridiculous. I spoke to him even on Friday and said, I've got some questions for you and all the rest of it, and about this document. And he said, yeah. I mean, I need to know why he isn't here, because this, where everybody knows portfolio holders come here. That's the whole reason they come here, to be scrutinised and questioned. And we're going to hold this meeting. I'm sorry, Chair, you're a brilliant chair, don't get me wrong. You're going to hold this meeting with one of the most important people, apart from you, Lee, not being here. And how can we do this efficiently? I was going to ask, we've got hybrid. Can he not come on? Can we not have a 10-minute adjournment and sort out him coming on even via Zoom or something? Because otherwise, I would put it that we're wasting your time here to a certain extent, because this is the person we need from the cabinet to be here, and he's not here.
My question was, actually, I'd written it down. Can you confirm as portfolio holder that this wouldn't happen? But I had to.
Well, it's just, we'll be asking questions, and nothing against Lee, but we do need someone who in the end, there's continuity amongst members to talk to us, and he isn't going to be here. And it's not fair on Rob either, because he'll want to be here
Yeah.
too.
So what I'm going to do at the moment, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes. And we're going to try and contact the portfolio holder, A, to ascertain why he wasn't here, and B, to see whether he's got an hour for questions to take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, members, we'll make a resume the meeting now. So there appears to have been a misunderstanding. Councillor Bindloss was available, but we can't actually contact him earlier. So we'll carry on, and questions will be noted, and we will then forward all the questions to the portfolio holder, and he will be invited to reply to us direct. So each member will get an email answerable where he can of the questions that you're asking. Okay. You ready? All right. Councillor Bindloss will be with us via Zoom in 10 minutes. So if we can crack on anyway, and yeah, if you're happy to wait the 10 minutes. Yeah, that's fair enough there. Yeah. So as soon as he arrives, we'll push on. Okay. So the meeting's still adjourned. Okay, just for the members watching it through the YouTube, I can now confirm that Councillor Bindloss has very gratefully decided to come along. He wasn't actually, there was a misunderstanding, and he wasn't actually invited. So there's clearly a misunderstanding. I'm very grateful to Councillor Bindloss, and we'll proceed. We'd just seen the overhead, Councillor Bindloss, and my question was, I got it written down. Can you confirm, as portfolio holder, which I changed to Lee, that this the use of feasibility study in the vision report, right, I'll read the question for a start. There are several references to feasibility studies which will require use of consultants, etc. Melton has in the past spent considerable amounts of money on these schemes which haven't gone forward. Can you confirm, as portfolio the holder, that this will not happen under your watch? And at that point, there was a number of questions. I know it's not specifically related to the report itself, but it feeds into it. So if at some point, we've given it quite a bit of airing, if at some point you could respond by email or to members, I'll be grateful.
We could certainly. Good evening, members. I'm sorry that I've held you up. I really am, but it's just come as a surprise to me as much as to you. As far as feasibility studies are concerned, I'm not a great lover of feasibility studies, particularly, but I do realise and I do understand that there is a value in having them at the right time. And I think something of this magnitude warrants that. You know, I've looked at one or two different projects recently where we have actually used, or we are in the process of using, people that are skilled in picking up and understanding exactly what is needed. Probably far more so. Well, it's their job, isn't it? Far more so than, for example, you or I would do, or indeed many of the officers. So there is a need for that at specific times. I certainly wouldn't, and I would never be in favour of just rolling out feasibility studies and consultants just purely for the sake of it.
Any other questions on this particular angle? Councillor Glancy.
Thank you. Regarding feasibility studies, if you don't have them, you can't do the job. So you don't know what you're dealing with. But where is the funding coming from to start the feasibility study? Is that through the funding, the funding mentioned in this document, or is that from the LEP? Is that funding somewhere else?
Assume, correct me if I'm wrong, it'd be from external sources, i.e. the PWLB, but I'll be open to correction.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm happy to take this one. So the funding source for the initial feasibility study would largely vary on the project that's being brought forward. You're absolutely right, there are some projects within the town centre master plan that would naturally feed into the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and therefore it's likely you're able to use the UK SPF for feasibility studies. It says so in the guidance in the interventions list. So naturally we would look to utilise some of that funding should partners view it being of such importance that it meets the final intervention list. Other projects may come about. The source for the feasibility funding may be kind of not opportunistic, but for example, if Sports England or another organisation had a funding stream open, we felt it was a good match for some of the final priorities in the town centre visioning plan, we could look to secure the funding through that means as well. So yeah, it very much depends on the nature of the project and the priority through which we've given it, obviously understanding that we've got fairly limited resource in officer time we wouldn't be able to deliver all of them at once, for example. So yeah, it would vary.
Brotherton.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, have you actually been in contact with the owners of the Bell Centre in the other places? How much are they on board and are they willing to put money towards it? Or are they expecting the council to fund it?
Yeah, as far as the Bell Centre is concerned, I know that we are in the process of discussing with the owners, you know, the potential to build on that. Above and beyond that, I don't know if you wanted to confirm any more than that, but I know that we are actively seeking at the moment to speak to I think it's the co-op actually. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. We will always engage with the owners as or the landlords at first point of call. There's ongoing discussions with numerous different owners throughout the town centre and stakeholders on kind of the different sites. Whether, you know, for a specific example with the Bell Centre, we're working with the bid to kind of make initial contact, as we've not spoken to them for a few months on that, and obviously we will ask the question around their willingness to input. We'd have to wait for their response before we could give you a steer as to whether
You want to come back on that one?
What happens if the answer is no? Yeah, but that will have an impact on your overall plan we have for our town centre, won't it?
Yeah, if they say no, we'd have to consider at that point in time. You know, that's something that we would discuss with our partners and with the landlords. We would hope to engage in a positive manner and constructive manner. If it was so important to the town centre and to wider partners, you know, it may be something that we you know, if we offer match funding towards that through the UK SPF, they may be more inclined to do so. But we'd have to have those conversations with them before we work out what the impact of a decision either way would be.
Yeah, you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm aware that this paper is about the town centre regeneration, of course, and revisioning. But I'm just asking if the youth provision can be considered as part of the integral nature of these policies here. There's a lot of good and positive talk, for example, about business maintaining and enhancing this and attracting tourists, for example, but no mention of youth services. And the reason why I am really into this point is because I've noticed that the corporate strategy priorities will be quite specific about youth provision. Looking at this paper you got me earlier, the State of the Borough 2021, so that this is going to be very much of a future theme. I'm surprised that it hasn't been picked up in the consultation, because we have had some issues in the town as regards concerns about, you know, what the young people are doing, and I would include children in this. For example, I mean, just I won't keep you too long, but looking on page 46, for example, you're talking about events, programs, tourism, ideas for tourism, basically. Also, we've got skills development, access to skills, and you know, a skilled workforce mentioned. So just some mention of youth. I've noticed throughout the paper that there isn't anything at all. If it comes to it, there's nothing about the elderly or cyclists or mums with prams. But I'm specifically interested in youth because it will be a corporate strategy. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm having some trouble with my mic. There we are. Yeah, no, absolutely. If that's something that you know, members want to see more explicitly in there, we can put that in there. I mean, obviously, there's kind of things that are indirectly linked towards youth, but if that needs to be, you know, such as you know, enhancements to parks, but you know, playgrounds, etc., etc. However, if it's felt that needs to be kind of a more explicit link, then that's actually that's something we can look at. Absolutely.
I think that as far as young people are concerned, clearly very, very important. And as you know, it's an important part of my life as well. And between the UK SPF and of course, this particular grant funding in case, we will be working with young people. You know, I mean, we're talking about Melton Brooksby College. So they will, without question, have something that will involve young people. It's important that we do that, of course. This is our town, and it's important that it's inclusive for everybody, and that includes young people, and that we work with young people. And this is the kind of thing that we need to know. We need to look now and listen to what's being said. And if we haven't got enough in there with regard to young people, then that's something that we need, as Lee's already said, that's something that we need to look at.
Do you want to come back on that, Lee?
Yeah, sorry, I completely forgot to mention as well, just to give members assurance that we have consulted with students of Brooksby Melton College as part of this process. So some of the projects and suggestions that have made the kind of draft consultation document have been put forward by students as well. So just to give that assurance.
I could also just come back just quickly and kind of like reinforce that on the two working parties that we've actually had here. Certainly in the one that I was involved in back in February, there was a number of young people here from Melton Brooksby College, and their comments were most definitely part of what we've and how we've considered and what we're doing.
Councillor Holmes, then it's Councillor Evans, and then Councillor Chandler and Councillor Glancy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right, it seems to me that we haven't even got to the start of this. Have you consulted, has anybody consulted with the owners then of the Bell Centre? Have you actually talked to them?
So we're currently trying to contact and get hold of. We've talked to them
Well,
historically.
we're talking rubbish. I'm sorry, but if we do not talk to the owners, what is the point of anything? I'm sorry, Rob, there's no point in saying what we're going to do or what we could do. We can't do it unless we've actually talked to the owners of these properties.
I agree with Councillor Holmes.
It's ludicrous. We have got to get to the bottom before we consult. Before we get whatever, we have got to find out about who owns all these properties. I know my councillor across the road, oh no, you're not mine anymore, says that it's London based, but it isn't London based. I know a lot of the people who have properties in Melton, I mean commercial properties, and they certainly are not London based. There's more local based than London based. And quite frankly, those properties are far better to be used for something than not. And there's no point in consulting with anybody unless we start at the beginning. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but I just
think you made your point there.
I completely take on board exactly what you're saying, Elaine, and I agree completely. I realise and I understand that we are actively trying to speak to the co-op and owners. And yeah, I agree with you. This is, we should have looked at this probably in a bit more depth before we'd actually got to this point. But that's something that we're actively seeking and we are involved in doing at this moment in time. So yes, we will be coming back and we will be talking about the owners, and clearly, and this is something I think that Councillor Atherton was talking about as well. Yeah. What we want to do is work with everybody. We want to work with the owners of these properties. And I think that once we've spoken to them and explained what we want to do, that they will be on board with us. And this is exactly what we want. Some of them are more difficult to speak to than others, but yes, we are actively seeking to do that and to discuss with them the plan that we wish to take forward.
Clearly, it's as you say, Councillor Bindloss, it is an oversight, and we'll wait for the next stage on that. Councillor Evans.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Okay. Congratulations on getting here, Rob. Look, I don't want to take any of this personally, but we've got to this is not going well, in my opinion. I'm going to ask some key questions, and I've spoken to other members of this. Why, for instance, are we had 2 consultation meetings, one with members and one with stakeholders. Why? I've not met any of the town estate or bid people on that consultation. It would have been useful to have this room and us talking to the actual stakeholders, not just ourselves. We know ourselves well enough. You got officers and members together in one meeting, and then officers and stakeholders together in another meeting. I haven't a clue what happened in that other meeting. This, to me, makes absolutely no sense. Well, it's nonsense, absolute nonsense. Sorry, Rob, but it is, because we need to be all in the same room talking. And Elaine is right. There's no point in us going down the road with it. Do you know how many action points there are on this document? 50 action points, and all of them will cost money. All of them will cost money. This report is good, but it's not focused at all. And I think any officer here could have produced this report because it's so generic. It is so generic because, as you say, Elaine, Councillor, I shouldn't say Elaine, Councillor Holmes. Oh, yeah, Elaine. I know, for instance, in Bingham, and I think it is the co-op, have got a really important building they've held there. It's falling apart. The town council there have tried everything they can to get them to do something with it. The owners got nowhere. And it is this eyesore to the community. There's no point in discussing any of these structures unless we know what the position is. And I can't be honest. I could pick up the phone and get hold of the co-op and do with it in a day or two to find out what their position was on the Bell Centre. We need to get, as Councillor Owen says, and other people have said, we need to be focused on this, not waste hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money on a document that could produce nothing. And I'll be blunt about it, absolutely nothing. For instance, Iceni projects. How successful have they been? I don't know. How successful have they been in putting together projects that get government funding? I don't see an awful lot of them on their website saying, we've done this, we've done that. And that's what worries me. We need to be smart and we need to be more focused. I'm lucky I have a relative, a near relative who's in this business, and she's looked at this document and it's not focused enough. She said, you've got no hope of getting any government funding with this kind of approach. You've got to focus. You've got to make it clear, have it, whether it's Phoenix House, whether it's any peer or whatever, you've got to have a focus managed, not this. I don't think anybody in this room would object to any of these statements at all. They're all things we would like to do to Melton Town, but we haven't got a bottomless pit. We need to be focused to grab the government's imagination and say, this is what you should be doing. And instead, this will get us nothing. I bet you the bottom dollar, this document will get nobody's. And the one thing I also know, sorry, I'm ranting now, is you've had a failed bid recently. I think we as Scrutiny should see why it failed, because you've had advice back from the government. We need to know why it failed and learn from the one thing I've learned in life, and I've made plenty of them, is learn from your mistakes. And we don't want to go down this road of spending more and more of our taxpayers' money to put forward government bids that do not succeed. We've got to get this right from now on. We're in a competition. You know, when you see people in Newark, I know, starting and getting funding for some kind of astronaut training center almost up north, why have they succeeded and we've failed? We need to pitch more clever, because if we don't, we'll just carry on pouring more and more money and getting nothing back. Too many bids have failed.
Lee, just to chip in
Sorry,
here to respond then, Chris.
No, thank you, Chair. I'm going to apologise in advance if I've misunderstood what you've said there, Councillor Evans. That's not a bidding document. That's not a document that will be used to attract funding. This is essentially a piece of work that we've pulled together that will help provide foundations for future bids. So we will never submit all those projects at once. Our bids are focused on 1 or 2 projects at any given time, depending on the nature of the bid. This is a visioning document that we are hoping to be able to adopt that identifies that we have undertaken a series of consultations, and we've identified what the key areas are for our residents, our stakeholders, and our partners. Utilizing that, we are then able to go away and identify, you know, for example, through the Levelling Up Fund, we're working with partners in regards to King Street, the theatre at the college, and the stockyard, and they're projects that exist within that document, but the bids themselves are entirely separate documents that have entirely separate workloads. This just helps us to be able to evidence that we've undertaken that significant consultation to show that they are projects that people in the local area genuinely care about, and genuinely genuinely want to see improvements for. So that's what this particular document is looking to do. It's essentially a long list of you know, what people in the area want to see improvements in. We then go away and we then look at the funding opportunities that are available, the eligibility criteria for those, and we're able to identify, right, this project within this, we've done the consultation, it sits within this type of funding stream, we could look to fund. And then we go through the internal governance to ensure that members are on board with that approach, like we have for the Levelling Up Fund, and that we're putting our best foot forward. In regards to the fail bid, you're absolutely right. We always do look to learn from our mistakes, and that's one of the, you know, one of the few advantages of a failed bid. It enables us to show us where we need to be stronger later on. In regards to this particular round, I can tell you there was concerns around theory of change, which is how they kind of demonstrate how your project will impact the local area, and also concerns around kind of the future monitoring and evaluation, and identifying that that wasn't necessarily strong enough. And they are 2 areas that we are focused on improving through the current bid. We didn't get that response in writing from government. It was done verbally, and we took notes and took that on board, and that's something that we are working with colleagues in Rutland to ensure that is improved and enhanced for our second round of funding.
Can I just add a couple of things, Councillor Evans? Yeah, this is, as Lee said, this is an overarching document. I'd like just to come back to the stakeholder and the members meetings. I attended both of them and I found them very, very interesting. What I specifically found interesting about them, though, was that they were uniquely different. The ideas that were coming forth were different. And yes, I understand completely what you're saying. I think it is important that members and stakeholders have a meeting. I think that we can all learn from that. I think in the first instance, though, that this was the right way to go forward with this. I think having those 2 specifically different meetings, they were the same, but the answers were completely different. I think that was actually really, really interesting and very enlightening. I think they could be followed on by a group meeting when we've actually put together some of those ideas, and they are ideas that are different. And I wonder whether if we'd had just the one meeting, they would have been stifled, and we wouldn't have got forth the kind of ideas that did actually come forth from that. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. It would be nice to have and good to have a meeting of everybody. I think that kind of understanding is very important. But I think in the first instance, we were quite right to have those 2 separate meetings and get that kind of basic kind of information from both parties individually. Just coming back to failed bid, I agree with you on that. I think that you should have an understanding of what and the frailties of the bid and the positives of the bid as well, because there were lots of positives on that. Thanks.
It's quick one, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't be like the long dictate I gave. Was it a dictate? Probably was. I'm not going to go on long. I disagree to a certain extent, mainly because I haven't a clue what happened in the second meeting. And therefore we are not informed. We don't have a clue. You say it was different, interesting, but I don't know because I've not been told what the differences were. It really, we really need to spend taxpayers' money more carefully. And as Councillor Holmes has said, and other people, is we need to be focused and make certain we don't start pushing ideas or giving the public chance ideas of projects, for instance, a Bell Centre, that have got no reality of going anywhere. And I would say your chances are less than 10% of going anywhere, because for whatever reason, and I've come across this so many times, owners of commercial properties are not responsive quite often to any kind of thing like that. And it's just PERA and all the rest of it. We need early on, before we start giving the public the perception that we can do something, to make certain that we have a commercial partner who wants to join us in doing that. Because otherwise we will go down a long route, as Councillor Holmes has said, and get nowhere. And this is money that we cannot afford to waste. We haven't got a lot. And I honestly think this report is not worth as much as you paid, I'm afraid.
Dancy.
Thank you. Yes, I do agree with Councillor Evans in some respect, but I also think it's a very first step in the road that we want to take. And the one thing I'm quite interested in is the PERA Business Park. Most of this report focuses on the food industry. Now, we're well aware that our economy is based on the food industry as well, and it's quite low. It is very low in actual fact. So what we need to do is build on that. And I know at one of our briefings, we've talked about other things that we need to get into. To me, the pork pie and Stilton cheese is the key to the door that opens it. And I would like to see other things come out of it, which is why I'm very interested in the PERA element of it. I don't know whether we'll ever get access to the Bell Centre. I think that's may well be a pipe dream, but it's in there and we can sort of chase it up as much as we can, but I would prefer that we didn't spend too much time on it and flogging a dead horse, for want of another phrase. The other areas that we do have input in, and we own part of the buildings or part of the premises, I think we can have a huge input into that. But I'm very, very keen for us not to make this too narrow, to concentrate on food. Yes, fine, I totally understand that, but we want to grow our economy, and it's not necessarily in sort of food outlets and the production of food. There's a lot of other science around that, and I think that's where PERA will fit in really well. So I'm really gratified to see that in here. I think that's going to be a huge step in the right direction.
Chairman, I agree totally with Councillor Clancy. I think we put far too much emphasis on food. Agriculture is changing dramatically. We're building on food producing land. We have all sorts of schemes coming forward at planning to take good agricultural land, grade 2 and above, and well, below, because 1's the best and 2's the next. But I think we spend far too much time on that. Going back to people like the Bell Centre and the Co-op, I think one of the first questions we should ask is how much capital they're willing to put in. Because my understanding is that PERA put quite a bit of capital into their lettings of all these different rooms and things, which have proved to be a great success. It's not been taxpayers' money. All land and buildings now, it's the landlord or the agents all want to know how much capital you're going to put in, not the government's going to put in, what you're going to put in. And I'll just end by saying my usual thing. For the last 19 years, I've been knocking on chief executives' doors at this council about our lack of tourism and the fact we do not promote tourism. This weekend at Beaver, Councillor Holmes and I saw at least 200 caravans. I'm told there were 500 caravans there. Who was promoting it? South Kesteven. Why did we let them take over? I mean, all right, they sent a lot to Bottisford. Our people have done well out of it, but there was not a mention of Melton anywhere. You could go anywhere you liked. We had leaflets put through the door. Everything was South Stephen and Beaver Estates.
Yeah,
They've got a great publicity machine. Why can't we get on that bandwagon?
I think we need to ask the staff to get in touch with the tourism officer, who I've never met, and clearly get an answer why on earth did we not get that supported? Unless Councillor Bindlosh, unless you know why she wasn't there.
No, I'm afraid
No. But I see that the Bell Centre is not really supported by Scrutiny for various reasons. There's again, going back to the consultancy feasibility, I think it would be waste of time unless we know that the owners are willing to talk and see where the money lies. But I wouldn't like to see money spent on the Bell Centre without an assurance and a strong assurance that they can move on it.
Just something that happened to me several years ago. The co-op decided they were going to clamp cars. And I had to go and collect for the council. I had to collect some flowers for somebody. And anyway, I actually thought that I'd put a ticket in, and I had, but it did. And when I shut the door, it had gone. Anyway, when I got back, my car was clamped, and they were clamping somebody else's car as well. The lady who was on 2 sticks trying to get to pay for her car. So I, of course, played up a little, but mine was clamped. I had to go out that night, and I actually got to the chief of the co-op, who actually gave me £25 for the mayor's charity, apologised and got it sorted. That was in about 3 hours. So please don't tell me you can't get in touch with the co-op, because you jolly well can.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Can
I just come back just to agree with Councillor Glancy and Councillor Chandler that yes, we do need to promote diversification, and PERA is the obvious way forward with that. And it would be unwise and wrong for us not to do that. I also think that there's an element of being able to play to our strengths, and obviously food is one of those strengths that we must also play to. But no, I do think that the diversification is really, really important. With regard to the Bell Centre again, yeah, I think obviously we're at the early stages, and I don't think anybody it wants to go down the line of spending untold amounts of money before we've even spoken to them with regard to this. And as far as I'm aware, that's pretty much where we are at the moment. I don't know if Lee, you want to comment on that, but that would be the way I understand it, that we are at that investigation point, and that nothing further has gone along with regard to that.
So ask Michelle Howard, a Deputy Chief Executive, would like to input to the discussion.
Thank you. Just in relation to the Bell Centre, I just wanted to reflect that through the consultation meetings, obviously it was identified as a really key town centre location. Obviously we can see within those documents that, you know, there are absolutely the support and, you know, things in terms of future aspirations for that as a location and opportunities within there. In terms of being at the start of the process, as a council, we've got a really key enabling role in bringing things forward that might otherwise feel too difficult. And at this moment in time, you know, we won't have used all of those powers and tools available to us. So one thing that perhaps we ought to reflect to a greater extent in the document is the range of things that we could do to increase engagement and make sure that we capture that, and perhaps also within the cabinet report, so that we can give that greater assurance, because there is an element that if the council cannot do something to bring that forward, then who else will? So I think it might just be something to strengthen within that document, but you know, there's no doubt that the location came forward very strongly as a key one. Thank you.
certainly the members tonight have made their position clear, and they feel that money shouldn't be thrown at the Bell Centre until we know further what the owners feel about it. Whatever the officers feel, it's clearly a strong message from members. So thank you on that one. Can I just ask a question on car parking? What is the strategy, and what do you envisage spending to enhance the strategy, and have you spent any money on it so far? So really, what is the council strategy on car parking? That's the initial question. Can you tell me, Lee?
I'd have to liaise with my colleagues in assets. Assets falls under their portfolio. I'm not aware that we have a car parking strategy as such. Obviously, we have a car parking order which details prices, charges, and whatnot. But I can
it is mentioned a number of times in this vision report about car parking enhancements.
Yeah, so there's proposed enhancements for car parks where there's issues relating to poor I don't know what the word is, lineage, and improving kind of introduction of electronic vehicle charging points and things along those lines. I can speak to our assets development program. As far as our assets development team, our commercial assets team, as far as I'm aware, we've not incurred any costs relating to interventions like that at this moment in time, but I can get back to you on that.
But with respect, it is regularly mentioned in this vision.
No, sorry, I'm aware that it's mentioned within the vision. What I'm identifying is that I am not aware as to the level of funding that we've put towards car parking. I think there's an appreciation that car parks need to transform and provide further infrastructure, whether that be through electronic vehicle charging points or other more easy to access payment schedules, whether it be apps, which we currently have, card machines on the payment machines, and things of that nature. I'm not sure in regards to the level of investment that we've put into that at this moment in time.
The council has a strategy on car parking.
I'd have to.
Yeah, could you check and inform the portfolio holder and the committee, because I'm interested, because obviously there's going to be funds spent there, and there'll be further questions then on when we ascertain what your strategy is, Lee. Thank you.
I think we can actually, I think we should put a clearer agenda towards the car parking where possible, both from the point of view, as Lee said, and actually the future of car parks and where we move forward as far as car parks are concerned.
You're absolutely right, because we can't. We're going to have enhancements to get people to visit Melton. There's going to be nowhere for them to park unless you're parking outside and ferrying them in on. But certainly, there's not. It may be worth strengthening this document before it's submitted, because clearly it's an obvious question: where are the visitors going to park?
Exactly. I think that there is clearly a lot of work to be done on the car parks. This is something that we have looked at, and something that we need to develop a little bit more. As I said, we need a clearer agenda as to what we're doing with car parks.
Thank you, Chairman. Car parking is a big issue when you ask people why they don't come to Melton, from our point of view. You can go to Grantham now, and there's a multi-storey car park. You get 3 hours for £1.10p. And that serves the new multiplex cinema and also dental surgeries, opticians, and where a lot of the professional offices are. 3 hours for £1.10p. It's only a stone's throw from the town centre. The Margaret Thatcher statue is about 150 yards away from it, so you can tell it's pretty central. Bingham, you get 2 hours free. As we well know. as long as you get a ticket out of the machine and put it on your front screen, it's 2 hours free. Well, why are people going to come from our neck of the woods? I mean, Chris's and everything, they're not going to come into Melton and pay. I mean, we went to the solicitors a few weeks ago and we had to rush out and put some more money in the machine. You know, it's a big issue. And I've talked to Dawn a lot about this, and it's a big part of our income, the car parking income is.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she explains, you know, to me that we can't reduce it because we need the money, but we're losing a lot of people coming into the town because our parking charges are unrealistic to neighbouring towns.
I accept that as far as the car parking is concerned, it is never an easy thing. You know, it would be wonderful to not have those charges, and this is something that, as I say, we need to look at. We need a clearer agenda towards parking, and where indeed we're going to park in the future. And this is something that we'll look at, and we will come back to you on.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on some points that members have made about food and the focus all on food. But Melton's supposed to be the rural capital of food, but it doesn't have a food offering beyond pork pies and Stilton. So the idea that I had for the Bell Centre, which has made it into here, is that we actually, you know, champion local food producers and get people into town rather than just on day trips coming to look at, you know, Stilton and pork pies. I know there's been an idea of a pork pie factory, and it's, you know, someone in their mid-30s. I'm not going to travel into town for that. That's for a, you know, a set demographic. We need to broaden that. We need to get people coming into town from Leicester and Nottingham, and to kind of realise what Melton has to offer. My worry with this is there's lots of project ideas. Ultimately, we'll just spend a load of money on the cattle market, and that's what it will come down to. And it will just create better facilities for Matthew O'Callaghan's events. Because I question the events that we put on. You know, I drove past the Jubilee event that happened over the weekend and it was dead. Everyone was down at the park for the mayor's concert, but no one was up at the cattle market for what was going on there. And with car parking, I know that Councillor Lumley has said this, and I've said this before. Why can't it be pay on depart? You're not rushing back to put more money on your car. You know, people go and park in Morrison's and Sainsbury's and Lidl's because you get an hour and a half, 2 hours for free. So we're losing income that way. So I think we do need to look at developing car parking in the town. You know, South Kesteven, my parents live in Stamford. You can park most places there for at least an hour for free. You know, why are we not looking at doing things like that?
I think that the diversity of food, and you're quite right, you know, there's more to food than pork pies and Stilton cheese. And I think we would all agree on that. And we do have other things here as well. I mean, obviously pies, chocolate spring to mind immediately. But I think with the advent now of the stockyard, that diversification into the skills around food and producing food is something that will be focused on, and is being focused on, and is going to be growing over the foreseeable future. And you know, I think that you know that is important that we, you know, let this kind of grow a little bit if you want, and because I think it will develop and it will show a much wider diversification as far as food is concerned.
Councillor Evans.
Hello there. I'll try and keep it brief this time. You'll like that one. Yeah, I agree entirely with what Councillor Wilkinson says. I am staggered in saying this. Farmers market. Why haven't, we're the capital of food. I know farmers markets all over the country. We haven't got one, have we? Yeah, but more than just a Friday. It should be bigger than that. It got to be bigger. We've got, if we're the food capital of the world, we need to have more local produce in the market, more people making things locally that make us sound. It's no point in us keep saying the words, we're the capital of food, and then we, as Melton Borough Council, we are not promoting this more often, getting local people who are producing local meat, local vegetables, local everything, encouraging them to come to the square, day after day to sell their goods. That's that rant over with. Next rant. Okay, you've now said to me that this list of 50 things, one of which was I read this bit on car parking, to undertake a comprehensive assessment of the locations and type of availability of parking, traffic patterns created by them, and user patterns to determine future locations and provision levels. That costs money. All of these in this list has got to come money. How is this going to progress? Because you've got 50 points, very similar to that car parking one. I assume that the cabinet can't take all of them forward.
I think here, Councillor Evans, there's a lot more work for you as portfolio holder and for Lee before this document is submitted to cabinet. Clearly, there's a number of items that have come forward from scrutiny tonight, and they've got to be incorporated. Can you just assure me that they will be incorporated? I don't know who's going to do it, but I think otherwise tonight will have been a waste of time. So we've got to, somebody has got to get this document and get it into ship shape before it goes to cabinet. Because
if I can just
could you confirm that will be done, Rob?
Yeah, I think yes. And in answer to Councillor Evans, yeah, I agree entirely. It is a fluid document. I don't think anybody's ever said that this is just the ultimate, which is that, you know, it will grow. And isn't it good that we can have this conversation and that we can learn from this conversation tonight? I think that this is the point. Everything that's been said tonight is being taken into consideration. And that's the importance of this, isn't it? It's about listening to what everybody has to say and then moving forward. And with regard to farmers markets and the like, yes, if this is what we think is the way forward, which clearly I think you're right, then that's something that we'll learn from. And you know, we've put forward a document. Yes, you know, I accept, and that, you know, there are issues around some of these points. These are things that you've highlighted tonight, and this is the point of this, to within a certain degree, is to learn from what you're saying and to add those things.
Thank you. That's really reassuring, you know, because there's no point in going to cabinet, Lee, until the document is right. I know you've got an end date, but it's got to be, these points have got to be incorporated. And I think you should have gained a wealth of knowledge tonight from the members, because everyone had their say. And I think we'll look forward to you or certainly I going along to cabinet whenever it's called, or whenever it is. It may have to be slightly put back for these alterations to go to them. But has any member got any questions before I close the meeting? Councillor Wilkinson.
I just wondered if the committee should recommend to Leanne, to cabinet, that it considers it at a later date, because we feel it needs more work. I know the deadlines are tight for these bids, but what's the point in having it in place if, you know, it's not ready in the eyes of the committee?
I was just speaking to the Deputy Chief Executive. I think there is a deadline to meet, which is which date, Lee? Can you? Can you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry, members. The deadline date for the Levelling Up Fund is the 6th of July, and the deadline date for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is the 1st of August. Right.
So I think clearly we don't want to miss the 6th of July deadline. So, however, obviously these remarks have got to be sort of included, but it is important that the items are sort of listed on an appendix or however.
If you're happy
Yeah.
for me to come in. So obviously we are in a consultation phase at the moment, and this evening forms part of that consultation. So I know the portfolio holder and officers will be receiving comments that are coming through the public consultation, also taking on board comments received this evening, and we'll be incorporating those into the documents ahead of them being considered by Cabinet. The timeline is tight, as you know, and that's really guided by external funding deadlines. So it would be really risky to make any changes to documents being considered. However, this overall vision, as it says within the document, will be constantly updated. And as I say, all of those comments will absolutely be incorporated and are being considered. So just to give that assurance that tonight absolutely forms part of that consultation. Thank
But
you.
what concerns me is, as somebody, I think it was Councillor Evans said, is he if he was a betting man, he would say this is going to fail, and because we're running out of time, and I realise that we're going to maybe submit a document that isn't quite the full shilling, if you like.
Yeah, I appreciate the deadlines are tight, but why are they tight now? When did this journey begin? Why are we kind of almost, I'm not saying we're being bounced into this, but do you know what I mean? Because it's so short now between we need to get these two bids in. Why are we only looking at it at the beginning of June? Why didn't we look at it earlier on in the year? Now, I know we had the workshops after Christmas, but why wasn't that process started much earlier?
Can you answer that, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is something that's been led by Pranani and myself. We had a bit of a pause during the Omicron whilst my resources were put towards essentially handing out the business grants, and we've tried to kind of track this as quickly as possible during that period. We found out about once the Levelling Up Fund was announced, it basically gave us kind of a 3 to 4 month period to put everything together, and this paper has been tracked with that time frame in mind. What I would say is that, again, just to avoid any confusion, and apologies if I've misunderstood you, Councillor Child, this document isn't what will be submitted as part of the bids. This document will underpin separate application process, and it's the separate application process that we have the deadline for. This document itself is just kind of being able to demonstrate that we have undertaking a series of consultations.
Admit I didn't realise that. The recommendation is that we note the draft town centre vision consultation document. Well, that's this. But what you're saying is you're not submitting in this as the main document. I think that certainly that should have been made clear from the start, really. Councillor Wilkinson.
You can go next, Elaine, I promise.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I mean after me.
No, you're not. You wait. You're too young. One thing that you keep putting in, it is a low income economy. If you keep putting low income economy, we will be low. But everybody wants, like Councillor Evans and Glancy, want to have great food, great this, great that. But if it's a low income economy, they're not going to be able to afford it. So if you keep putting it, you will be lower. But you don't want to keep putting, we are a low income economy. Get that taken out, because then we might be going uphill, but we certainly don't want to be going downhill. I can assure you. A bit like that horse that I said that won today. I said to it, if you don't do something, I'm going to sell you. So it won today.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Lee, what will be the lead projects for these bids then? What is the plan for these bids?
In regards to the Levelling Up Fund on the 6th, so there's a quirk of the national guidance in as much as you can only submit one bid per constituency area, and it has to have MP backing. As a result of that, we are submitting a joint bid with Rutland County Council because we share a constituents area. So we are, you know, the proportion of our bid is made up with the theatre project at the college. Around making that a more of a kind of a commercial viable product to enable kind of more evening economy support and for them to put on more commercial shows. There is another project about putting in the how to say it kindly, the King Street building, bringing that back into use and developing that into space for a local business to move into, as well as providing kind of training space and other support space. And then the other part of the project is around the development of the stockyard, so the southern cattle market area as well. In regards to Rutland's projects, they're focusing on some health projects and a cultural offer that is looking to digitize the Roman mosaic and the ichthyosaur, I think it is. Yeah. So the Shared Prosperity Fund at the moment. So we, again, Shared Prosperity Fund, you don't submit projects per se, you submit interventions and then you form what projects will feed those interventions. So at the moment we're in the process, and obviously we've had the member meetings last week in regards to where we're creating a long list. That long list will be cut down into those proposed, as part of that long listing process, we have to develop basically a 3-year program of things that we will do to achieve and deliver upon our key themes, split across community in place, local business, and people and skills. There's some nuances around those, but largely we kind of get free rein to for community in place and local business, we get free rein to submit any project we wish. People and skills, there's nuances around it being ESF funded, but we're going through that long listing and short listing process over the next couple of months to come up with that final intervention plan before it's submitted. One of the key elements, and I can't stress this enough, and this is littered throughout the guidance for the UK SBF, is being able to demonstrate that engagement and that community buy-in, which is obviously how, you know, beyond the work that we're doing purely on the UK SBF, this feeds into that agenda as well.
If you can at some point collate all the answers you've going to research the questions and provide answers to all members on the questions raised. So that leaves me with the recommendation that this committee notes the draft town centre vision consultation document, and 2, provides comments for consideration by the cabinet and the portfolio holder for growth and prosperity. Can I have a show of hands on those recommendations? That's unanimous. So it just leaves me to thank you, Rob, for rushing in, not having his tea, which is maybe a long-term benefit, but also to Lee for coming along to Scrutiny. Hope later in the month at the workshop on the Shared Prosperity Fund, it goes a little bit more smoother than it has tonight. Councillor Evans, go on in.
I just want to say, could I just say, if Lee had told me what he told me in the last 5 minutes, I would have been informed and not said so much and wasted so much of our time here.
Yeah.
This is a background document. This is not forming a part of the bid. The bid will be, and if you'd have told, someone had told us that before we came to this meeting,
Yeah,
it would have made much more sense. Sorry, that's just where
under that impression. I didn't hear whether you said it or not, Lee.
My apologies. I can always be more communicative, so noted for next time.
Can I just add my apologies up for coming unprepared? It did come as a little bit of a shock. As for the betterment of not having my dinner, I'm not altogether certain about that. But yeah, I've just again apologise for not being more, forthcoming as far as this is concerned. And I thank you for your tolerance tonight, if nothing else.
5 on the agenda, urgent business. I have no urgent business, so I'll close the meeting at 8:27. And thank you all for the input you provided. Thank you.